what is a swap, right? What are the various kinds of swaps? Now, a swap, interest rate swap, is basically fixed against floating, right? And this floating tends to be a benchmark, like a SOFR for US, Ester for Euro. It could be Euribor also, right? We discussed last time what is the difference between Ester and Euribor, a risk-free rate versus a risky rate, right? LIBOR versus SOFR. SOFR is a risk-free rate, right? And it's an overnight rate, right? And sometimes SOFR, instead of overnight, there could be a term SOFR also, meaning that instead of having overnight rate, it could be a 3-month rate or a 6-month rate and so on. These are variations are possible. So converting floating to fixed or fixed to floating, what is that fixed rate, right? This is basically called IRS rate. Now, in the US market, the SOFR against overnight SOFR, the IRS rates are quoted for various maturities, and the tenor basically versus the fixed rate for each tenor is what is called the IRS curve, or some people also call it the USD OIS curve. Why is it called OIS curve? Oh, because it's based on the overnight SOFR. There is an IRS curve in the market which gives you the rates, fixed rate equivalent for converting a SOFR based payment for the next few years into fixed rate payment. What is that rate? It's quoted for various tenors. This is the SOFR OIS curve or SOFR IRS curve. Now, one more small thing which before we move is this, that whenever you have ECB based on a certain benchmark, you have to be very clear that as long as the benchmark is SOFR, right? Basically, it's a risk-free benchmark, RFR, risk-free rate. So because it's a risk-free rate, the fixed rate for a given tenor, let's say 5 years, against overnight SOFR should theoretically be at least same as the fixed rate against a term SOFR. There should be no difference because term SOFR is just nothing but a reflection of the overnight SOFRs in some sense. So if somebody is saying, market is saying term SOFR for next 3 months is 4%, it means that the market expects the overnight SOFRs for the next 3 months to be on an average equal to 4%, right? So for all practical purposes, at least theoretically speaking, there is no difference between fixed rate against term SOFR or fixed rate against overnight SOFR. But in LIBOR world, that's not the case. For example, Euribor. If you have a euro loan at 3-month Euribor or 6-month Euribor, you will have a different rate because 6-month Euribor is more risky than 3-month Euribor. You cannot use 2 3-month Euribors to combine them together to come up with a 6-month Euribor because the credit risk is different. The fixed rate is different. Higher the better of the benchmark like Euribor, 6-month Euribor or 12-month Euribor, the higher the fixed rate. That difference does not exist in the SOFR world because SOFR is a risk-free rate. So this is another point that I wanted to make clear before we move on. Now, the SOFR curve is basically a series of fixed rates for different tenors quoted for against overnight SOFR. Now, as with any swap, or rather any rate that you quote, you need to accompany it with a set of conventions, right? For example, what is the day count frequency? What is the payment frequency? The payment frequency in case of a SOFR is that up to 1 year, right? Whatever is the payment frequency, is only one cash flow. 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, there's only one cash flow. But beyond 1 year, so 2, 3, and 4, this is called annual frequency curve. So this rate is, for example, for a 5-year period, 359, 361. So if you want to go to a bank and convert that into fixed rate, let's say a SOFR loan, SOFR will be converted at 3.61%. That's the fixed rate. So this 3.61 is expected to be paid every year, once a year, annual. That is the rate. But if you want it semi-annually or quarterly, obviously this rate will be different, slightly different. That you have to convert that into semi-annual frequency and so on. Now, less than 1 year, all these rates that you see are direct rates, meaning, for example, 9 months, there will be one payment at the end of 9 months because it's less than 1 year, right? So anyway, if the payment frequency is annual, less than 1 year anyway, there's a bullet payment at the end of the tenor. This is the frequency. And in terms of the day count convention, all these numbers are actual by 360 convention. Right? That's also another thing we wanted to repeat here so that it's clear. These numbers are quoted with an actual by 360 convention, which means the actual cash flow, for example, here for every annual cash flow will be 3.61% into actual number of days in that period. In this case, 1 year, right? So 365 days or whatever divided by 360 into notional, right? This is the actual cash flow which happens. Now, this will change depending on the currency, the curve, This day count can change. In India, for Indian curves, instead of actual by 360, it will be actual by 365. So to summarize, there is a curve called USD OIS or USD SOFR OIS or USD SOFR IRS curve, which is quoted as annual money market convention, which is actual by 360, right? And this is the curve. Right? And these numbers will keep changing every minute as they are traded. So market trade these numbers. So in time, these numbers you have to pick up from the screen like Reuters or Bloomberg or any of those data sets, and then use that in the pricing. These are traded numbers. This is the USD SOFR curve.